Hello, I'm Roberta Winters of the League of Women Voters of Radnor Township. As you may know, several years ago, the League of Women Voters did some studies on natural gas extraction from Marcellus Shale and also ones on pipelines. Members throughout the state studied these issues and learned a great deal. Recently, I saw an article in the Inquirer about a reliability station to be built in Marple Township, which is just down the road. It got my interest, and since then I've been learning a whole lot about the PECO Reliability Project. The purpose for this project was to provide additional gas resources for clients that are being in need throughout other parts of Delaware County. I think this is an important development that everyone in our local communities need to know more about. Joining me today to discuss the natural gas infrastructure coming to our communities are Jim Schmid and Jamie Mogil. I'd like to begin by having them tell us a little bit about themselves and why they're interested in the PECO Reliability Project. And I'm going to begin with Jim.
Thank you, Roberta. I am a biogeographer and consulting ecologist, and for more than 50 years I've been specializing in environmental impact assessment, wetlands, and water resources. My clients include industries seeking permits for new construction, as well as environmental groups challenging regulatory approvals and government agencies themselves needing help in environmental reviews and analyses of environmental programs. For 30 years, I served on the Marple Township Environmental Advisory Board, many terms as chair or vice chair. I'm proud of my role in getting the state to recognize Holland Run in Marple as the one and only exceptional value waterway in Delaware, Montgomery, and Philadelphia counties, and to have secured similar recognition for several other streams around the Commonwealth. I currently serve as a gubernatorial appointee to the Citizens Advisory Council of the Department of Environmental Protection. I am certified by several professional organizations and frequently serve as an environmental expert in the state and federal courts. I've been a resident of Cedar Grove Road for more than 45 years, so its intersection with Sproul Road or State Route 320 is a place I must visit daily. On weekends, I take my grandchildren through that intersection to play at Russell Elementary School, 1 block away, where their fathers went to school. And I patronize the commercial establishments on Sproul Road quite frequently. I'm concerned about the proximity of a proposed heavy industrial facility to homes and residences in Marple Township, and the increased human health and safety risk that brings, along with increased noise and air impacts. And we have an industrial zone in Marple, but this is an industrial facility that does not comport with current zoning and the existing uses that are adjacent.
Thanks, Jim. We can see you know a lot about this, and it's a personal matter for you as well as one that speaks to your expertise. Jamie, how about you?
Hi, Roberta. Thanks as always for having me and bringing us together to talk about important issues. I'll keep it short because we need to hear from Jim on a lot of the matters he started to touch on. But I'm an attorney in the area in private practice. I have my own firm helping small businesses, and I also have a background in voting rights and election reform for the last 10 years. And I also happen to be the president of the neighboring Lower Merion and Narberth League of Women Voters. And this just happens to be personal for me as well. Having grown up in Lower Merion and living there, this pipeline will literally go right in front of my home. So let's get to it and talk about these important issues.
Well, Jim, let's first of all speak to just what is a reliability station.
A reliability station is a pump station, an industrial pump station that serves to boost the movement of gas through the pipes on the way to customers. In this particular instance, liquefied natural gas is to be brought down from the Poconos to Conshohocken. And there are a series of heaters that are going to be constructed to liquefy the gas, liquid, turn it into a gas, reduce its pressure, and put it in pipes. And by the time it gets 11 miles down pipeline into Marple, that gas apparently needs to be heated some more and boosted along to whatever service area that PECO decides to send it. They haven't told us where they're going to send it. They've only shown us the first 11 miles of the pipeline and the site, their proposed site for a reliability station.
So basically, a reliability station is going to heat it, it'll change the pressure, and get it ready to send out to the customers.
Yes, I believe it's likely to put some MERCAPTAN to put the gas odor in the natural gas so it can be detected by people with a smell that we're familiar with, which is not naturally present in natural gas.
Because basically natural gas is odorless and colorless, so you wouldn't know it unless there was a smell to it.
That's right. And this station will also have industrial operation of the pumps and the heaters that will be heating it and that will run essentially 24 hours a day, I think.
Well, you know, I looked at some of the diagrams, Jim, and the PECO has really nice pictures of what it's going to look like. I mean, they have American flags flying out in front, people walking around. You know, it looks pretty good. So I think their designs would make people happy. Is that really the case?
Well,
I mean, then what's really inside, you know? I don't know.
They can make it look nice, I would hope. They are proposing a chain link fence around the outside to enclose the property. It's a very small piece of property. It's only a half acre on a corner right across the narrow alley from an existing house that was just rebuilt. It's next door to a restaurant. It has homes across the street and to the north and to the east. So it's right in the middle of a residential neighborhood with some commercial on one side. And that's not where industrial facilities are supposed to be in Marple. So it's going to have noise. It's going to be releasing burned gas, because they will burn gas to run the heaters to heat the material being distributed. And they will leak some methane itself, some of the natural gas itself, into the atmosphere because valves and pumps all leak. So that's not the greatest thing to have in a residential neighborhood.
I think we had a slide about what might be inside of that, don't we? Where it shows the big stacks coming out and big machines and walls and everything. I mean, that's not, you know, they're covering up a lot of what might really be behind those walls, right, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is an industrial facility. It's has its place if one accepts the need for additional gas, which PECO thinks is a good investment for its stockholders. Then this is the way you go about distributing that gas. There's a larger question in the background of whether there should be any additional gas. Gas and other fossil fuels need to be cut back on and not promoted, but that's a somewhat separate issue
Right.
from the local siting.
Because, you know, the local siting seems to be the biggest concern and the strongest position that the residents of Marple have. Am I correct? Because it's basically all about location.
Well, that's certainly the concern in Marple, because this facility does not comply with local zoning. The PECO applied for a conditional use approval. They were turned down by the commissioners and the zoning board in response to the outcry of the neighborhood for people who were concerned about this. And it's more than just a not in my backyard. I mean, it's the kind of thing that you really don't want in your backyard because it's an industrial facility, and we have an industrial district in Marple that has the old incinerator plant and various other activities that perhaps would entail an extra mile of pipeline construction, but that would be a place to put it.
But right now, isn't 320 a state road? And to go to that industrial site, they need to go on Reed Road, which would make permitting more challenging. Am I correct?
That's right, because the utilities have carte blanche to build pipelines in state roads in Pennsylvania. That's just something that they are allowed to do. The municipalities have no say in that. The municipalities do have some ability to control the siting of land use, such as residential and commercial and industrial facilities, in relationship to one another on the surface of the land. And PECO has challenged the Marple denial of conditional use in the Common Pleas Court in Media, and they are also challenging the municipality before the Public Utility Commission. So those are activities that currently are underway.
What about other things, Jim, besides location? As you live there, are things you're concerned about besides just, you know, just like the zoning? There's more to it than that, isn't there?
Yes, there is. Well, there are going to be impacts from this facility. Precisely how much impact is a challenge to quantify. It's not the only source of impacts, because there are a lot of people who live in suburban Philadelphia. But the heat that is generated directly from this station, this reliability station, is adding to global warming in the municipal heat island. That means that we will get additional heat waves. We will get more violent thunderstorms in the summertime. The environmental justice communities in our area will have more hot weather than the rest of our communities, but we'll all get some. And of course, there will be some additional runoff from this site, which will be put into the highway drainage and into the streams. And we already have a considerable problem with flooding in the Darby Creek Basin, particularly in the municipalities to the south of Marple. And this is not helping them. Unlike Philadelphia, our suburban townships have no particular charges for adding stormwater to the municipal runoff system.
So in addition to stormwater, you live there, so you've got a nice house, Jim. That property values could be impacted, we might think.
Yes, I am not immediately adjacent to this pipeline or reliability station. I'm about a mile away on the same road. So it will probably not affect my house values particularly. But the people who live up close to it will be exposed to additional risk, and we'll probably talk some more of that in a bit.
Noise and light and all that stuff. And I think
Right.
you had a close-up, Jim, of that specific area right around Marple.
I
Did
do.
you not?
Yes.
And you could maybe walk our audience through some of the things that are close by?
Yes. This is an aerial photograph taken last November in 2020, so it's a current aerial photograph. In this photograph, it's from Google Earth, you can see some parallel lines going from the upper left-hand corner to about the middle and the bottom. The middle pipeline is orange. That is the location of this section of the pipeline. Almost at the bottom, there is a nearly white little patch at the intersection of two roads. That is the site of the reliability station. You can see two buildings between the reliability station site and the margin of the photograph. That piece of ground is a half an acre. It is not a pristine site. It had a gasoline service station on it for many years. It's got some crushed stone on it at the present time, but nevertheless, it's right up against houses on all the sides. I have two sets of lines in addition to the pipeline, which is orange. There is in yellow the distance out to the 200-foot blast zone that the U.S. Department of Transportation's agency for regulating pipelines has identified on its chart, given the 12-inch diameter and the 475 pounds per square inch operating pressure for this pipeline. And within that, there could be extensive damage from an explosion. These don't happen all the time. They happen every year around the country in various places, but we don't know where they're going to happen next. But right now, this wouldn't be existing, and once this facility were put in operation, that would be there. Outside, I have some red lines that are the 600-foot burn zone that the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has for pipelines, again, of this diameter and pressure, where everything is likely to be incinerated.
Jim, fried.
Absolutely. If there should be an incident of explosion and burning of the natural gas, and if that happens as a result of corrosion, less frequently as a result of equipment hitting the pipeline, which is buried 3 feet below the surface, that's a big deal.
Yeah, well, I can understand why the people of Marple are very concerned about this. And I think it should be more than just Marple who's involved with this. And this is why, when I just happened to mention it to my friend Jamie, and I showed her that map, which shows the whole line from West Conshohocken down to Marple,
Yes.
that there were some real concerns there. Because when I read that article in the Inquirer, I immediately thought, well, if I was going from West Conshohocken to Marple, the shortest distance between 2 points is right through Radnor. But that doesn't seem to be the way they went. And I just want our audience to understand, as I know you do, that pipelines are the safest way to transport hazardous liquids and gases that we have. But they are not, as Jim mentioned, without incidents. So, Jamie, knowing all this and seeing this pipeline, and I think the map might be up there now that shows the map all the way from West Conshohocken to Marple. What was your reaction, Jamie?
Well, actually, you didn't show me the map at first.
That's true.
We happened to be on one of our many morning walks, and she was telling me, and we were talking about the Marple station and all the various issues and concerns that Jim raised. And you were telling me that it wasn't going through Radnor. And I thought to myself, well, West Conshohocken, now remember, I live in Lower Merion. I live literally right off Montgomery Avenue by Merion Cricket Club. And I said to myself, well, wait a minute, that's Lower Merion. And then I happened to see this map, which I think you all can see now. And I was obviously very concerned because I am pretty involved in my community. The fact that I had never heard about something like this. I think many people in the area know about continued construction on Matson Ford and Spring Mill Road, and I thought that had to do with I did not think that that had anything to do with a gas line. And so I started to get very concerned, really because the lack of awareness and lack of transparency, that if they were building one station and it was West Conshohocken, how many more stations would they be building? Now West Conshohocken, and I should say Lower Merion, where we are, we're Montgomery County. And so it's not Delaware County that we're discussing with the Marple station, but I thought, wow, I need to figure out from my commissioners, my local board of commissioners, Narberth Borough Council, anybody, if they had any idea about this. And so that led me to realize people had not a clue, not a clue at all. And it's not to blame them. I want to be clear. The system really is set up, as Jim mentioned, to provide waivers for PECO and under this term of supply, right? That yes, it's very important for us to have the supply when it's demanded and to have utilities, but when that's done, and particularly through state roads, we're talking about Montgomery Avenue, we're talking about Lancaster Avenue, you can get around these companies essentially are sidestepping any kind of zoning requirements, and thus how would the local township commissioners have any idea? And so that led us to, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but really how can we make sure that our community is aware? Because I'm very concerned. There's a brand new school being built right on Montgomery Avenue. Until this point, I still don't know, but I have tried to ask numerous times our school board, were you aware of this? I mean, I don't think that they had any idea that a major gas line would be running. And the way the school is set up right now, God forbid something would occur, that is the main exit and entrance. So these are all things we need to be considered. There's hospitals, there's residential communities, apartment complexes, retirement communities, churches. It just is a very concerning thing, and I don't like to see about blast impact, because if that's true, well then that would really be impacting me.
Well, as you can see,
I
from
wouldn't
that
be alive.
map, yeah, that's, it's going near the Bryn Mawr Hospital, it's going near the Quadrangle. These are what we would call high consequence areas. If anything perchance happened, if there was a leak, if it was in the right kind of circumstances, there could be a very dangerous situation where we would lose lives and property of significance.
And we know that West Conshohocken, which is this big hub, this main hub for PECO, if anybody has grown up in this area in the last 10, 20 years, you've seen the major expansion in Conshohocken. Now they also have a sewer, and there's a lot going on. And my family, I have my mom, my brother, my nephew live in West Conshohocken. They had no idea. My stepfather, who lives off of Spring Mill Road, had no idea. The people in my apartment complex had no idea. So this is really about what can we do. And I know we're short on time, but that's really what we're working on in the league and with experts like Jim, to make sure that the community is aware and that the safety precautions that are needed will be in place, that we have support for our emergency responders, because it's a different situation. I had no idea that I should be smelling this gap, that it's
MERCAPTAN.
MERCAPTAN, thank you. And why would I know that? I wouldn't know that I even know that. So we need to help our community prepare and make sure, because in West Conshohocken there was a explosion 50 years ago that was very deadly.
Now, I know Jim talked about this pipeline is running, it's like 11.7 miles. It's 12 inches around, diameter across, and it's got high pressure, 475 pounds per square inch. And we put about like 35 in our tires, right?
Right.
So multiply that by 10, you know what that feels like. This is coming through at a very high pressure. And even in Haverford, we've talked to people there. It's going by another elementary school in Haverford. So, I mean, these are places that we really need to consider. And I know we have a chart that shows just how the risk of pipeline incidents increases with the diameter and the distance from which you're located. And so you can tell it's not the worst pipeline to have in your neighborhood, but it is not without risk. So, bottom line.
It's all making us very nervous.
It's making us nervous. So we believe that there's a lot that the public needs to know about this natural gas infrastructure that's in our communities. Jim, can you give us one thing you think the public needs to be doing right now? One thing quickly.
Oh, I think they need to inquire into the need for this pipeline and the alternative locations for the reliability station.
Thank you. Jamie, one thing.
One thing is transparency. We need to be hearing from PECO, we need to be hearing from our state representatives, and we need to understand what is happening here. It's been behind a curtain, it's been veiled, and that's certainly, it adds to this kind of negative tone and increases people's fear. So I think pulling back that curtain, give us transparency, let us know what's happening with this pipeline.
Well, based on my best understanding, I think we need more collaboration. We need to work across communities and counties on these kinds of projects. We need to engage with the pipelines, and they need to engage with us with a sense of trust and reliability. Because there was a saying, trust but verify. We need to make sure that these natural gas operators are doing what they tell us they're doing, and we have regulators and agencies who are checking to make sure they're following the rules. Now, we also want to encourage you, our audience, to stay involved. You need to become educated so that you can participate as active participants to make sure your health and safety and that of your children and their grandchildren are protected. Now, as always, the League encourages informed and active participation in good government. And I want to thank Jamie and Jim for joining us today, and of course, Mainline TV for helping you, our residents, learn more about what you need to know to help make democracy work. Thank you.